So, where we're at in the Sifra Ditzniuta. Okay, I think that I think actually we're at the bottom of page Tov Reish Aleph. On the left column, where it says, "Is Yached Yud B'Luchadui." It sounds like the translation of this, but it leaves the Yud by itself. So we're on number bet here. It says, "V'atach the beer the shonus a Sifra Ditzniut," and now he wants to try to explain these different kinds of languages. He says, or the ideas. He says, "He never beer Indian is Yached Yud B'Luchadui." That Indian. Abanu kan divrei ayav v'shav v'zalashon is Yached Yud B'Luchadui. Now he says, quoting here, Pirush Acher. Here's another explanation. He says, Kol Elish Gavochen Nivnuch V'Kol Partsufi Zer V'Nuk. All of these, he says, we're in a situation where you've already rebuilt Nivnu Kol Partsufi Zer V'Nuk, so the Partsufim are complete. Ika Histalkus Amochim, and then you have Histalkus Amochim, so the Shena, Vadormita, they leave their Anpin, V'hum Masha Kasa Rebbeinu B'Shar Kavona. So this was written over there by Rebbeinu the B'Shar Kavona, so Drush based the Amida over there. What does he say? He says, B'midas Ba'av, on that road, V'achar Shenistalku Amamochin, the Nai, the Ava Nisharim Makifim, excuse me, Al Gabe Resha de Zer Anpin, on top of the head of Zer Anpin, Biluchudui, by themselves. That's what he means, Biluchudui. But Nehi de Imam Mislava, Nizlavshim ben Mukva Asos, and Nisira, Kanod, I have this marked down, I can say, Kanoda, as is known. So we were focusing on that. Kinai de Ima Niknisu Benukva Ad Kan Vere Baha'aras Kan Shahavdach Bebir Hadavarim. So the first one I didn't find too compelling because there's a lot of repeat here. So the first one is called at the very top of the page. Let's just read this at the top of the column, then we'll go to the Pirush. It says Gavar Nibnu called Partsufi Zer Venuk. They've already been built. So what does he mean here? So I guess I'll read it. Let me come down a little bit closer. So let's see. I can actually see it. Let's see. I like reading out of the book. He says, "The zer anpin kvar koi bebechidas yud gimel shana b'yom echad." Now, the reason for this phrase, the 13 years in a day and 12 years in a day, doesn't give why I mean, this is our standard idea. So maybe it touches on to what we're going to be learning in the Tivik Avonos, where the number 13 is significant. Not sure exactly why that particular age, but that is the age of maturity. That is when the first time comes that he's going to make a kli in the nook. The Kamuva B'Harvels the Ale, we talked about that. B'Shem the Yov the Shal the Eitz Chaim and Sham V'Tzarech Lomer, the Kol B'Chinas Godlus Elu, that all these the aspects of godless, which is 12 years in a day, 13 years in a day, Nechlala B'Maimer Asifra that's the use of the Ale, it really refers back over there. The Nog here of Ma'aver of the Nukva, so he becomes illuminated. I guess that's a quote. And he passes it over to the Nukva, the Hanukkah B'Vur Be'etz Chaim, and saying, "Oh, that." So this is the part that I thought might be a little bit illuminating. She'ein zer anpin meir ba'achrav. He doesn't shine towards his back, onto his back, or to his backside. L'gadol, but the saying the Nukva of Rak la'achad tishlum gadlus the zer anpin b'yud gimel shana v'yom echad. He cannot do this until that time. Besod lo tov yosa adam levado ein sham. So more to be said about that. V'chein kuba eitz chaim. So also that. So he says, so he has to come to the age of 13 years in a day, which means that the mochin, the godless, are within him. He has those mochin. Let's go on to the next one and see if we get a little something more fulfilling. He says, now the next one says after that, after Yud Gimel, it says, Ika histalkos a mochim, so you have a situation where the mochim leave. Beso the shena v'chadormita, v'hu masha kansach v'rabbeinu v'b'shachar kavonos, v'drash beis the mida, and the which on the word b'milas ba'ava, so over there in ava that you're going to have the same thing happen. V'achashin histalkol the mochim deny the abach and the shara mekifim al gabe reisha dezer anpin. Let's look over number daled down below. Those were the words up above. These are the words down below. He says, Reba Eitz Chaim, so over there. And where are we working? We're in Shar Kof, Perik Tes. Zel Shana v'acher kach be'esa nesira mistalkim nai da abba ve'ima. So we heard that. Okay, so we've heard it several times. Beis b'chinas chochma v'chosadim. So the two, now this is a little bit hard to understand. He says the two aspects, which are the right side aspects of chochma, the chosadim bein da abba bein da ima, nish'aro b'sod or makif. Now he includes over here, I didn't know this, let me read it again. He says the two, the chochma and the chosadim, both of abba ve'ima, which is the right side of abba ve'ima. He said, bein be'ima, nish'arim b'sod or makif, so they remain up above the head of Zer Anpin, al rosh Zer Anpin. Bashar, which is the left-hand side, so the phrase that we had, according to this, the phrase that we had, that thought we had before, was that all of the mochin, the whole nai leaves Zeranpin and goes into the nukva. He says, but that's only when you're talking about the left side. The left side goes into the nukva, the right side remains the makif. Now this is hard for me to understand. He says, now what you have here is the chesadim and the chochma and the psadim that are what is the right side. I'm trying to think of. We're talking about the nai of Abba ve'ima leaving Zeranpin, and he says the part that leaves is going to be, well, everything's going to leave, but the chochma and the chesed remain up above. So he says, and the rest is what goes into the nukva. So he said, so what chasadim and what are we talking about? We're talking about the chesed. Are we talking about? I'm trying to understand this. Is he talking about the chochma and the chesed of the nai of ima? So each of the netzach has a chochma and a chesed, and so on and so forth, and so does the hod and the yisod. All have that stays above the head, muluvashim. But he says, but the chochma, what happens is now they become maluvish on the nai, the abba. That's hard for me to understand the difference between these ideas. There's a kamo shabir b'hagolos of shemesh, like we're going to see in the shemesham. V'hein handisharnim b'bechinas or makev, that remain that aspect of the nai of ima and abba both remain on top of the head, al rosh zer anpin. B'china b'binos the gevuras and iknasa b'nukvah maluvashim b'nai the ima, so they're also clothed on the nai of ima. See, what's really bothering me here, because I really don't understand this. What nai is it? What chesed and chochma and chesed is he talking about? Is he talking about the chochma and chesed of the nai of bina? Let's see what happened to Rebbe. He's away over here. Wow, I lost him. Now, I know that we've seen this idea before, but now I'm just trying to understand, because now he says they're muluvashim on the nai, the abba, and the shabir b'hanvagas shemesh, he says, behema nisharim bebechinas or makiv al rosh zer anpin. Then he says, ubechinas bina gevuras haniknasim benukva, so the binas and the gevuras that go in, which are contained, I would say, inside of the of the Yisod of Ima. I'm not sure exactly what he means there. He says he's talking about the aspects of Abba and Ima. These, so that either the right side of Abba ve'ima and the left side of Abba ve'ima must be coming through the Yisod, I guess, of Ima and Abba. Those don't stay above. I don't know if you have an idea on this, but I'm just reading through. It's like it's hard for me to say how they get back and they start they therefore are become a makif or surround or they attach themselves or malvish on top of the uh, the uh, the right side of Abba and the left side of Ima. What the Lavasha is here, it said, Bebechinas or Makif al Rosh Zer Anpen, Bebechinas Bina Gevuros and Niknazim, Benukva that originally came into the Nukva, Malvish and Benai the Ima, they come into the Nai of Ima. Yes, so thinking through it, it must be that it's coming, the Chasadim and the Chasadim and the Chochman and the Chasadim and the Chasadim and the Bina and the Gevuros must be what's contained in the das that's coming into Zeranpin. I assume that. So the Kamot Shabir Ba'agos Shemesh over there. V'zechad the Amrina deny the Ima Neknasim Benukva. So this is what it means like this. When you say that deny the Ima goes into the Nukva, Be'esa Nesira Kanaida. So that's what it's talking about is that when they're coming back in, the Nai is coming back in, but part of the Nai. So let me just see what I can understand this. Is that the Nai of Ima and Abba enter into the head of Zer Anpin, and the left side is the right side, then the light side is going to contain Chochma, and Bina is going to come from Chochma and Bina, and then whatever aspects of, Chochma and Chesed, whatever aspects of Chochma and Chesed are there are not going to go into the Nukva, and the same thing is true, they're going to become a Makif. And then the Bina and the Gevura that is coming in, I guess I'm thinking that comes in through the middle line, and it spreads over to the body of Zeranpin like that. That left line leaves there on pin and goes into the nukva. That's the best I can understand of that little complicated little thing there. That was number Dalet. Reading after number Dalet up above, it says, Biluchodoi, it's by itself. V'nai de ima mislavshim benukva la'asos hanesira kanoida. So this, therefore, is going to make the nesira in the nukva, as is known. Now, so let's see number Hey. Number Hey has a little bit more arichos to it. So, let me see where I'm at. Okay, number Hey says, he says, Vehine av shachasifra d'tzniusa kan lo hiskir lehedya inyan in Nasira. It's not really mentioning the word Nasira in this particular place. It's just not talking about Nasira. Amnam Zem moving kama mela, but you understand it has to be that way. Along the way, we understand. Sha'are call in istalkos and mochin. When we talk about the leaving of the mochin, hanizgar kan kul tzorach hanesira, the whole idea of the mochin leaving and going into the nukva is for the purpose of nesira. V'ikar hadavar shechoya nesira lifnecha v'zivug kli amor b'sifra d'tzniuta. So this nesira has to take place, of course, before you could have the making of a kli between Zohar and Nuk, because they have to be independent, Sifra, as is mentioned here in the Sifra D'Tzniusa. Ms. Boyer Gam B'Divra Eitz Chaim, so the Eitz Chaim in the Shar Tal over there, it says like this, B'ha'aros Zel Lashono, Ki Hine Zer Anpen Nosen Rayo Zer D'Bina D'Bia Rishona. So the Raya, once again, is the formula for the making of a kli, and he puts that into the nukva, besod zivug ach ba'ach. Now we went through that already. What means zivug ach ba'ach? What the possibility of Zol Lomer? But he wants to focus on this idea, achar shenenasru, after the nesira. V'ala b'chek Abba v'ima, then they go to the bosom of Abba v'ima. V'az nivzdavgo v'oz ozo kli, so then they make a yichud, and they make a kli there. Okay, so that happens. He's focusing on the idea of after the Nesira. So what does he mean there? V'yesh devoyer hatam shalo nizgar lehedyet inyan the Nesira. So this seems to be the focus here. What's the problem? Why did they not mention the idea of Nesira? Who lefi shalo koyach Nesira rock lefisha? Because Nesira is only a momentary thing. Ki iker. So what does that mean? Ki iger on the Nesira choya acher kach ayedecha tefilosa v'mansav shal adam berishon. So I'm thinking, where are we here? Isn't that what we're talking about? he says, Ki Iker Anasira Hoya Achakach Al Yedei Teviloisav V'Masav Shel Adam Rishon, so it had to be done then, the real Nasira. Yeah, I actually meant to start someplace else just to give us a refresher on the idea that we were talking about on number Gimel on the other side of the page. There he was talking about this making of a Kli. It was the making of Adam Rishon and Chava. Then at the very end, and I'm really sorry about this, but he says that he makes a disclaimer. He says that what we're talking about here, we're not talking about the making of Adam Rishon, but instead we're talking about the making of a Kli. That's all we're talking about. Now coming over here, when we're talking about this, let me start it again. He says, "V'yesh levoyer hatam shelo nizker the hedya inyan nesira, hu lefi shelo choyer nesira rak lefi shah." It was only in a momentary time. Now, what time does he mean? Does he mean that by Ata Kadosh over there? Is that what he's talking about? Not Ata Kadosh, but what came before that? What is it? He mentioned it. I forgot. I haven't got the names right in front of me right now. Ki ikar hanesira choya achar kacha yedei tefilosav v'masav shel adam rishon. So then the real Nasira, where they actually, male and female, come permanently, I guess is what he means, separated, has to do with the tefilos of, and then the maisim of Adam Rishon u'kamon shehu b'aras na'el. We talked about that already. Ayin Sham. Came b'vukah b'eitz chaim. So then, if that had to do with in other words, the real Nasira, so what he wants to say is like this. The sequence has to be that the Mochin leaves Zer Anpin, and they go into the Nukva, and they produce a Nasira. That Nasira is only for that purpose. It's only for the purpose of building up the Nukva and making it possible for her to be independent. But that's only a momentary thing. In order for her to remain, that's what it sounds like to me, to remain independent, then that takes the place, or this goes the Masav Shal Adam Rishon, and the Tefilos and the Masav Adam Rishon, Gomos Shehu B'Aras La'el. We talked about that. V'chein B'vor B'Eitz Chaim, also explaining over there, the Hashlomas Binyan V'Koislim B'Eis and Nisira. So we see that in Rosh Hashanah, where actually all the walls are completed, so that they're not shared anymore. That takes place at the time of Nisira. Shena'asach Yedecha Chasadim B'Gevuros, the Zivug Abba V'Ima, which we have to go back to Rosh Hashanah and show how it is during the days I guess it's the 10 days of repentance, how we're actually moving elements from Abba, from the male aspect, from the Zer Anpin, and then we're separating them. That is the Nasira itself over the course of time. The Zivug Abba V'Ima that's taking place at that time. Nasis mitzvos she'asa Adam Rishon. This all takes place, and I guess he's talking about Rosh Hashanah. What we're supposed to be learning at Rosh Hashanah, that's supposed to take place as a result of the mitzvos that Adam Rishon does. So in other words, Adam Rishon builds up himself and winds up with all the Chasadim, and the Gevuros wind up being separated into the Nukva V'chein Rei B'Mal B'Sharm over there, got stuff over there. So this can only be done by, now once again, Adam Tachtonim is in plural. So I guess the Adam of the local of the lower worlds. Now let's go on. He says, "Behine besifra ditzniuta laholon." Beperik base. He says hiskir. He said behead. He says inyan hanesira over there now. So let me just say this. I offhand I would not think that the inyan and the Nasira is holding something back. I mean, why are we talking about the fact that the word Nasira is not mentioned over here? What's the point? He said, well, the point, it seems to be, he's saying, the point is that without a Nasira, which is elemental to this concept of building a Kli, you have to talk about it because it has to take place. Now, in the last piece, he said that there's two Nasiras. So there's a Nasira that's originally to build up the Nook, And then there's a Nesira that takes place that actually ultimately separates them as a result of the actions of, he says, Adam B'Tachtoinim, Adam HaTachtoinim. That's us, or it's Adam HaRishon. I'm not sure. So going back again, V'hine b'sifra d'tzniutzach b'perek beis hiskir b'hedya inyan in the Sifra. There it talks about that. Gemoshen is boyer gam b'bir milos begin to the parsha in order to be able to separate them. V'aseh shaper k'fim mashen is boyer b'charasham. So it comes out good according to what we explained over there. Okay, we're got another quick introduction. This stuff is really has to be thought about in lots of different dimensions. Okay, we're almost to be able to make a conclusion of what's being said over here. So he says, let's go back to the word begin. This parsha ansham. In order to separate them, you need an asir. They have to be independent. So I just had this thought, but maybe he means that the Nesira that you have happening, like say in that bracha, what is it? A Kale HaKadosh? I don't have the siddur in front of me, so I can't remember it. Where the Nesira takes place in the morning davening, and that place. So he says that's temporary. So he says it takes a lot more in order to actually have an ultimate Nesira. He said the Eirei Chassid b'Nesira ha'ikris. So he's telling us there's a root Nesira. A Nesira that come as a result of the efforts of Adam HaRishon. And now we're back to that original thought that Adam HaRishon is going to be the Kli. The Sof V'yita Havaya Elokem, and that Hashem planted, etc. over there in Breshis. And the Emer La'achi Yetziras Adam HaRishon, which says, in other words, he starts talking about the Garden of Eden. When does he do that? When is the garden built? The garden is built after the actions of the creation of Adam HaRishon Ayin Sham. So he said, we're going to talk about this more, Sham. This boyer, this we said furthermore, Pirish Talmud, according, we're going to see that. He said, the Eirei Chassid b'mochen d'chashlomas hakosalim. There we're talking about the mochim that complete the walls. In other words, so that they're not sharing a wall, that have independent walls, be'ez and Nesira at the time of the Shira, Ayin Sham, and we're going to see more of that as we go along. That's the shir today.